We have been unmuted, Julie. Hello, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
We're now in the Porterhouse Studios in Biloxi, Mississippi.
Yay.
Yay.
Hi, Robert Walker.
Hi, Robert Walker. I was just now looking for something to watch. Well, here it is.
Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah.
If you have any issues hearing us, or if we're skipping, or if there's any kind of delay, could you please make a comment in the chat so that we can
take care of it?
Try to take care of it. Go to Streamlabs.
Loud and clear. All right.
Kev Truth.
Thank you.
Awesome.
And hopefully there's no delays or skips or anything. We had a little skipping on our intro on our side. Yeah.
Hello.
So, hello. Julie?
Yes.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
The end of 2023.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know about you guys. We've actually had a good year this year. I can actually say 2023 was a good year for us.
I would say it was probably the best year of our lives. Maybe the best year of my life, maybe.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's
maybe
been
the best year of our lives together.
It's been a lot of work, and it's been difficult in some areas, and we've had to work through some things. But the outcome has been amazing and fantastic. And what I'm referring to is that we made a 1,000 mile journey several times. We drove from Pittsburgh to Biloxi, Mississippi. Was it 5 times?
Four
times, and then I was in a truck 5 times, or the 5th time. And that's up and back, so that's 1,000 each way. So 2-day journey, and we carried some stuff, and we put our little car under stress the one trip because we had all our books and LPs in the trailer.
So the car was like
it was a low rider for 1,000 miles. We didn't scrape, but so that was a lot of fun. But anyway, it's great. I mean, we're just getting around to hanging pictures and doing that kind of stuff. We'll post photos later, but so how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm fine. It's it's New Year's Eve, and I'm happy to be here, happy to be enjoying life.
Yeah.
We
mentioned, or Julie mentioned, or I mentioned that we had a little plumbing issue that we took care of. The guy came out, took care of it. It was nothing like big leaky. It was just basically just kind of like light seeping, but that makes a big difference over time. So we had to have that fixed. But got that taken care of, and we're good to go for a show. Today, we're going to talk about fun and exciting things. I said in our notes that basically propaganda and lies that we've been just seeing, and we've been finding that in our conversations, everything we're talking about always comes back to propaganda and lies.
Yeah, it really does. I'm sorry. I'm trying to retweet this.
All right. Well, let me just kind of give a quick little overview.
So I don't mean to be like,
you don't need to. Julie's on her. She can't even just like get through a broadcast without like getting on her device. I can't believe these young people. I just don't know. Anyway, what we've been finding though is that through this like everything seems to be coming down to propaganda and lies, or some sort of I forget how we put it. That everything is falsified and it feels false as far as a narrative, and this is everything from what they're telling us about the environment to what they're telling us about war and pandemics and everything, and it feels like we were saying that it felt like COVID was sort of like, well, you said it. What did you say this morning to me? That COVID is the beginning.
Oh, it's the beginning of the 1,000-year
war.
The 1,000-year war. So we're in the middle of a 1,000-year war.
Well, at the beginning.
We're at the beginning of a 1,000-year war, in my opinion. So in 1,000 years from now, I was sort of making up this like really creative analogy. So can I just riff?
Kevin told us that video's a little stuck. It might be, like
Not sure how to
not sure
describe it, but he can
hear it. Okay, so
he can hear it fine though.
Okay, I hope everything. This might be our connection too. We have kind of a slow connection on our side. So
who knows what's going on?
Yeah. Okay. There's
But
a delay.
There is a delay where your audio doesn't match the video, but I still hear everything.
Okay. Sorry
Maybe
about
we
that.
should talk really slow and catch up to the past.
Okay, I'll just sit here for a moment.
Should we do that? Should we try to catch up to the past?
I don't think so. I have a feeling it won't matter. Anyway,
Enter into some strange time continuum.
The Twilight Zone. Anyway.
Feels like the Twilight Zone these days.
Doesn't it?
So I think that we're in the middle of a 1,000-year war, and that in about 1,000 years from now, when the whole world is automated and the humans that are left are either walking potatoes with, hardly any brain cells, or people like me and you, who still think and ponder and question and look to the future and look to the past to help us through. And when everything is automated and you get your universal income, I know, big trigger for a lot of people out there. But in 1,000 years, when they say, can you believe people actually had to work or pay rent? I wonder what life must have been like when they had to run around and work themselves to death just to put food on the table. Life is so much better now that everything's automated, that those people will have a moment to ponder today, which will have been 1,000 years ago, and say, wow, why did they let this happen? How could this be? Don't they know that there was one or two, influential people and there were millions of them? Where did the disconnect go? Don't they know that, didn't they understand the term, the Great Reset? Somebody I like to listen to a lot, almost every day. I'll just say his name's Scott Adams. He is the Dilbert creator. He said, so everything about the past, as far as, wars in the Middle East and everything that we know of, it all ended. And we're in a totally different paradigm now. So it's, because people would yell at him and say, but Scott, what about what happened in 1847 when the blah, blah, blah? And he's like, I don't care. That doesn't have anything to do with what's going on today. And of course, I'm agreeing with him and I'm talking to him as if he's in the same room with me. And I'm like, yeah, whatever happened to the term, the Great Reset? Did you guys not understand what that meant? It meant that all of your past worldviews and all of everything that you've learned throughout your lifetime is basically moot now. Mm-hmm. It's null and void. Yeah. So that's what the Great Reset means. And you're in the middle of this 1,000-year war, this 1,000-year paradigm.
I don't agree with everything that he says, and you don't either.
Of course not. Yeah. I don't agree with everything that anybody
says. There's some things that he says that I just go, are you fucking kidding me?
Well, whatever. That's because you don't like anyone.
I don't like anyone, really.
Barely like me.
I know, that's true. I barely like myself. No, that's not true. But I agree with him on this. And I think that can come through in a lot of things. I've been thinking about this for a while. It's all the isms, especially even the things what we believe in. I've noticed that everybody uses historical context for things, and there's no current or contemporary context for, Marxism or even anarchism. Everybody points back to the people from the turn of the last century. And as opposed to thinking in terms of now. I mean, there's a few people out there that are not quite like that, and we follow them. You probably do too. And they're looking at, today and how we're being influenced. And one of the things that I was thinking about as we were having our conversation this morning is that in that Great Reset that we've been talking about, that standards have been lowered, right?
It started with diamonds, right?
Yeah,
it started with the diamond conversation.
That's the conversation about diamonds, right? Go ahead.
So again, another little tidbit of useless
And
information.
he had a different take on it than we did, of course.
But
yeah.
my take is much better.
Right.
Little tidbit of useless information from Scott Adams was that the American, I forget what they're called, but like the American Gemological Society.
Yes, gemology. Yeah.
The American Gemology Society. There's two of them actually.
Okay.
And what they do is they rate diamonds.
It's gemological.
Yeah, whatever.
It's gemology.
Whatever.
It's gemological. Oh,
it's two different, completely different organizations.
Mhm.
And what they do is they rate diamonds, and they're the ones that set the standard for the best color, clarity, depth, cut, all this stuff, right? Well, and so these are natural diamonds that have, and you guys know how a diamond is made, right? I've used it as a metaphor. So if we're really carbon-based life forms and we're under a lot of stress and pressure, that's how you make a diamond. Carbon is under a lot of pressure over a long period of time, and then what comes out is a diamond. And so that's a natural diamond. So just think of it that way. If you're a carbon-based life form, you're under a lot of pressure, one day you'll be a diamond. That's how it works. So but lab-made diamonds are now considered like equal to the carbon-based pressured natural diamonds.
Or at least they're being certified.
They're being certified in the same way that natural diamonds are being certified.
Yeah.
So now you've got this strange, like, way lowering of standards and the lowering of the factors by which we define what is good or garbage, right? The regulatory practices in how diamonds are rated has been lowered so that, a piece of glass you pick up off the ground is like, oh, it's a, $10,000,
This. Yeah.
It's it's not. So now there's no way of really regulating or basing the value on anything. And so that applies to basically everything in life.
Right. Well, I think that
is kind of what we came to. That's the conclusion we came to.
Exactly. And I think, what was it I was going to say? Oh heck, I just lost my train of thought regarding that.
Sorry.
About no, it's okay. But that's a pretty extreme example, right? If you're going to take the standard of what a diamond is, or what, if you're going to create a new standard for diamonds, I mean, that is like the ultimate like thing, right? Like a diamond is a very valuable commodity or very valuable object, right? And if you're going to change the standard on that, then where does everything else go, right?
Exactly.
And so as I was we were talking about this and I'm thinking about it, it's like, well, standards and everything in terms of like the narrative of things have been falsified. And this is why I started the program saying, it's all about propaganda and lies. And if you look at everything, COVID has been that sort of launching ground. But I think AIDS was that first launch of like telling people that there is a virus out there and it's hurting people and it's killing them, when the reality is that it was the treatment that was killing them. Hell, let's say it. Cancer was the first volley, right? It was that sort of like volley of like, okay, well, we're going to promote cigarettes, but at the same time, we're going to start the Heart Association. And while at the same time, we're going to treat people with poisons for that cancer that we cause through the sale of cigarettes and other things via, industry and other things. And we're going to make lots of money, but we're gonna gaslight people and tell them that, it's just cancer, and cancer just happens, and and so we're going to treat it, but we're going to treat it with poisons, and we're going to
happens. That should be a T-shirt. Cancer
happens. Well, there's lots of bumper stickers and T-shirts out there that say "fuck cancer," but I think that people think of cancer as being a natural thing, but I think that it's a result of not our lifestyle, but a lifestyle or a life that has been imposed on us. For a long time there, the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area, San Francisco especially, had a big increase in, or was like a ground zero, or like a big place for breast cancer.
Mhm.
And that in and of itself is kind of weird, because breast cancer is the thing that everybody points to, right? There's walkathons and all these funding things that are going on for breast cancer, when you pointed out to me the other day that heart attacks are the number one killer.
Heart disease
Heart
are the number
disease.
one killer of women.
Right, not breast cancer. And yet what gets paid attention to? Something that they can make money from, both taking
Right.
money from you for research, and then taking money from you when they need to treat you with the
Right.
poisons that will ultimately kill you.
Because there's no money in heart disease. Doctor, oh my gosh, you told me I have heart disease. What do I need to do to be cured of heart disease? Well,
Eat
maybe
better.
stop eating those pork rinds every night when you're kicking your feet up watching TV.
Stop smoking.
Stop smoking.
Don't drink. Don't eat so much sugar.
That's it. That's all I have to do.
Drink cocktails so much.
That's all I have to do. And then there's no money in that, right?
Right. No, living a healthy lifestyle there's no money in that. So, so we saw that through cancer. We saw it in AIDS, right? Telling people that they were, unhealthy people, and that they were spreading diseases, and they were all these things. And it's coming down to, like, even now, diamonds and diamonds and other things too, like
diamonds.
like climate change. Now, I love the climate change one, because it used to be called global warming, but then they said, oh, but some Republican, and you can look this up, some Republican senator or congressperson changed the name. They changed the name, and
they did. Well, in that 1990,
but how did the liberals act
speech?
Like we didn't have any control over that message? Yeah, that's bullshit. No, they changed it. You know why they changed it, of course, is because,
right.
Again, this is propaganda and lies. It's easier to say something is climate change because it could be anything, just like COVID can be anything.
Right.
It can be it can be a disease in your toe.
War could be anything.
War can be anything, right? Exactly.
In 1995?
Something like that, yeah.
No, it was December of 1994. Bill Clinton gave a speech at the
that was 99.
1999?
I think it was.
I thought it was 1994. Well, he gave a speech at the William Drake Hotel in San Francisco, or the Drake Hotel.
Not the Francis Drake. It was at the
it was the Grand Hyatt.
The Grand Hyatt.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Somebody said it was the Sir Francis Drake. Somebody said it was something else. And finally I looked it up.
We found it on C-SPAN.
And it's the Grand Hyatt.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So the Grand Hyatt,
now that you know,
hosted Bill Clinton in
there it is.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. 1999, you're right. February 26, 1999. And he used the term climate change and global warming. He used both of those terms interchangeably within sentences.
That was the transition.
That was your pivot from global warming to climate change.
Because global warming,
the marketing of it,
right? Global warming is like, oh well, the planet is warming, but climate change, oh the planet is warming, but there's also crazy storms. Oh, but it's going to be cold over here, and they're using weather to describe climate, even though they say, well, but weather is not climate. So you got to. I used to say that too.
I used to say the dumbest things.
Well, but
I apologize.
Weather isn't climate.
Sorry. No, I got into an argument with my mom about it. She was She was actually being really, really astute and she was making all these wonderful points about, how global warming or climate change is not what people think it is. It's basically just marketing. And I was like, no. And I totally pushed back.
Yeah.
I feel so
well,
bad.
I pushed back a
sorry,
long
Mom.
time too. Yeah. Well, I'm sorry to everybody that but anyway, the thing about climate change is, again, it can be anything, but oh God, I lost my train of thought again. Wow. But global warming, it means something, right? But climate change doesn't. And the thing that you need to, here, I found my train of thought again. It's going that way. I'm not on it.
It's at the beach.
It's at the beach. Is that, no, I lost it again. Wow. I hate that. Oh God, I hate that.
Things are interchangeable.
But wow. I have to stop drinking when we do these things, I guess.
Well, it's New Year's Eve.
It's New Year's
right,
Eve.
guys?
Well, yeah, you know.
So,
But okay, let me see if I can find it again. But in the meantime, oh, I know what it is. So when you hear something over and over and over and over again, and it's like everywhere, you know that you have a good idea that that's probably propaganda. The other side of it too is that people stopped talking about pollution. Pollution is the real issue that we're dealing with in our environment. Water pollution, air pollution, land pollution, whatever it is, right? And for some reason, they've started lowering standards on these things, right? They started lowering standards on what organic food is. They've lowered standards on what clean water is and clean air. And they stopped talking about air pollution and all these things. They focus instead on carbon, which is something that we're made up of. Like, this is the building blocks of life. We are carbon. And something that somebody in the 5 Docs was talking about, that carbonated water is actually a good treatment for, I forget what it was, but for some health reason.
well,
And carbonated
we've always
water-
been told carbonated water, even just plain carbonated water with no sugar and nothing, would eat away at your bones.
Right. And stuff like that. And even down to the point where
shit we were told by
right.
doctors.
Well, like a few years ago, where they were talking about that company's SodaStream. The whole BDS thing was going after them because they were an Israeli company. So it's like everything about carbon gets attacked, and nothing about pollution.
That was your pivot.
Now, it was the pivot, right?
That was the 2015 pivot.
The only time you ever hear about pollution is plastic pollution, and you see this all over the place. We use a service called Pixels to get our video clips, free video clips, and there's, like, you can look up plastic pollution. It's everywhere. Like, plastic pollution is this, like, if you live near the ocean, you'll see plastic washing up on the beach. Well, I don't that much. I see a little bit. I used to see it occasionally in San Francisco. I don't see it around here that much on the Gulf Coast. Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton, not Bill Gates. Yeah, Bill Clinton.
Clinton gave the speech in San Francisco in 1999. It was when he was talking about globalization efforts. And he was talking about the pivot from global warming to climate change. Mm-hmm. And he was also talking about how it's important that through globalization efforts, we don't lose constitutional protections, believe it or not, back in 1999. Anyway.
Yeah.
I digress.
But people have been talking about this plastic vortex in the Pacific Ocean. Hello, Happy New Year.
Hey, Sean, how are you? Nice to see you.
They've been talking about this for years, and yet, have you ever seen any photos of it? Have you actually?
Probably AI, probably fake photos.
Well, one guy was talking. One of the founding members of Greenpeace, who is not associated with them at all anymore, and some of his assertions and some of his attitudes and ideas, I don't agree with, of course. There's some things that I buy into 100%. And he was basically saying, you do see photos of the plastic vortex, but like Japan is in the background. It's supposed to be out in the middle of the Pacific mm-hmm. Ocean. There won't be any background. Right. But they say it's the size of Rhode Island or something. And yet, do you see photos of it? Do they, it's just, so this comes back to what we're talking about, the falsification and the lowering of standards. The lowering of standards of proof people are always saying, oh, well, I'm looking for standards. I'm looking for proof. I want proof-based or what is it? Evidence-based.
Evidence-based.
And yet we're not supplied with any evidence that global warming is happening. They just say that, oh, well, hurricanes and severe weather, that's evidence of global warming, but it really isn't, because we know climate change, because see, climate change can be anything, right? Mm-hmm. We know that weather it gets modified, it gets manipulated. We live at currently right now. We live at the ground zero of Hurricane Katrina. The Mississippi coast was hit the hardest, more than New Orleans was. New Orleans was damaged by the Army Corps of Engineers by opening up the floodgates, as it were. And we have also heard that the levees were actually blown up. So we were, well, not us personally, but the people here who are neighbors who experienced it were ground zero. And yet the media never talked about Mississippi coast. They said it was
it was the landmass on the southern coast.
That's right.
That's what the mainstream media called Biloxi, Mississippi, the town I live in right now. So imagine if you are living in San Francisco, which was founded in 1849, and say the 1989 earthquake had flattened the whole city 40 years after it was founded, right? Or 140 years after it was founded. Imagine if the media had simply referred to it as, oh, that little pioneer town in the middle of California, and just totally like dismissed it and condescended to it. There's a lot of people in Biloxi, Mississippi, who are like, a little bit offended by that to this day. And when did Katrina happen? Like 2005?
Yes.
So it's going on 20 years now since Katrina happened, and they still hold a chip on their shoulder that the media referred to this whole region as that landmass on the southern coast of the United States. I mean, that's really rude, especially for a little French colony that was founded in 1699.
And this whole area is very rich, but it's just like the term flyover country. When we first experienced that effect when we were living first in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is sort of considered, Pennsylvania or Ohio, the areas in the Midwest that I drove through from San Francisco to Pittsburgh and found very lovely. And yet these things are called flyover country. So, we live our lives according to the standards that other people place on us. So the people on the East and West Coast seem to place these standards on the rest of us. And we're feeling that very acutely here in the South. And we are, people say it's the deep South, but we're actually on the coast. So, but if you go up north, north, then you're in the deep South.
We're corrected. When we tell people we live in Mississippi, they're like, "No, you don't live in Mississippi. You live in Biloxi, which is on the Gulf Coast."
The Gulf Coast.
It's like trying to tell people that I live in California
when I live in San Francisco.
We're talking about two different worlds here.
Yeah.
So,
but we've seen it, and we haven't experienced it 100%, and so we're going to do more exploring, and just like we experienced the deep poverty of Pittsburgh. We'll be investigating that, and we've seen it to some degree on our trips, through the middle of Alabama and Mississippi, where some crazy shit you'd see on the highway.
Oh man.
There's a thing where you can haul.
This is some of the funniest stuff I've ever seen, but scary.
You can tow like 3 cars behind you. So that we'd see these trucks towing like another truck that had a car inside of it and another truck behind the one that was being towed.
Oh, what about the time we were behind a van that had duct tape wrapped around an air conditioning unit in the back of the van? It was during the summer. It was super hot. So they rigged an air conditioning unit like that you would put in your window of your house or your apartment. They rigged that to the back of the van. So the air conditioner was like hanging out the window.
Right.
I was
I guess you'd use that
fall and cause a
duct tape was holding it in.
Oh my God.
And
like the stuff we saw, crazy. Or when we had to go the first time we did the trip, which was pure hell because we didn't do an overnight in Nashville, which was a big mistake. The first time we did the trip in April of this year, we were rerouted. GPS rerouted us through like Bars and Stars, Alabama, right? Or
It
something.
might have even been Mississippi.
Yeah, and no, I don't think we were in Mississippi yet. I was like, oh my God, I hope that nothing happened. And we had the trailer behind us.
Right. And we were on like these little county roads that were mostly
I kept
pavement.
hearing the sound of banjo music in the back of my. I kept turning around to make sure that
everything was fine though.
No, everything's fine.
The only thing that we ran into was just like some attitude from a young Yahoo in a those young Yahoos, a young Yahoo and a hot rod.
Oh right.
Yeah.
That was in Nashville though.
No, it was in that very same vicinity.
Yeah,
it was just some kid,
whatever.
I mean, we run into attitude from kids all the time when you're like an upstanding adult in your plain looking Subaru and carrying a trailer. Yes,
the whole thing about I think the whole business of like being condescended to or in one case actually lectured for choosing the Gulf Coast and Biloxi, Mississippi as our forever home was a little bit appalling. And it made me also reflect on having to get out of my own way when I spent many years looking down my nose at different parts of the country. When I realized that, it's not what you think, at all. So
yeah,
you have to get out of your own way when you go visit these places.
Well, a guy we met the other day, he was from about 50 miles inland from where we live, and he was fishing, and we were talking to him. He had a psychedelic furs t-shirt.
I know, I like that guy. So he has this, Southern accent. He's fishing on the dock, and he's wearing a psychedelic furs t-shirt.
And he spent time in the military.
None of it made sense. He lived and he was in the military. Right. So none of it made sense.
He knew the San Francisco Bay Area because he was in the military, and he was stationed in Oakland at one point. So we were
San
talking,
Diego.
And San Diego. So we were talking, and shooting the breeze. And he, there's still a lot of things that are that are still felt today in the South from the Civil War, which was 150, 160 years ago, right? And he said something like, "Well, do you know what Southern? I think what did he say? What was Southern soup or Southern stew?"
Oh yeah,
and it's like you boil water, and and it was like these are like holdovers from post Civil War era, and and you look into the history like General Sherman. And I knew about Sherman's march and basically what he did, but I heard about it. I started reading more about a particular town called Meridian, Mississippi, which was like a place where train locomotive and the trains basically it was a crossroads basically, and it was a very built up town. Well, Sherman basically came through, pulled up the tracks, burned the town, and pulled up the tracks and destroyed them from 10 miles on either side of the town. And so this to me tells me that this was not just military action. This was economic warfare in the highest degree, where they were basically trying to destroy economies, destroy communities, and societies in a place that was considered, that was looked down upon. And I have a lot of I've been developing a theory about what the real cause of the Civil War was. I haven't really quite disseminated it yet, and I'm not going to go into it here, but
I love that theory though.
But it's about economics and not about slavery. It's only slightly about slavery.
Sean says Gulfport is awesome.
Oh.
And we were in Gulfport right before Christmas. We took videos of the lights. There's a light show there. It's really, really fun.
Yeah.
And Kevin says evidence of COVID in 2020 was people laying on gurneys and hospital beds on the news, which is not evidence.
Right. And it was
well, you know what? Gurneys. It's the same thing that we're supposed to believe that on my birthday of this year, October 7th, Hamas attacked Israel based on things that we see on the news.
Right. But Julie, the hang gliders, Julie, what about those guys? They attacked those poor people at a concert. at a music festival. Those poor people, and then they took hostages. Those bastards.
Yeah. So,
The end. No, I mean,
yeah.
so it turned out that the hang gliders, as you may well know, was footage from a music festival from a few years ago, and you can
And it was in
say,
Egypt,
and it was in Egypt. Couldn't you tell by the music?
not Israel.
Yeah. So, and then,
Stupid
yeah, but it's
Americans.
all desert out there. The Middle East, it's all desert. But
So this really does go along with lowering the standards, So all of this, everybody who buys into everything that they see on social media and on the news, but particularly on social media, which has far more influence on the way you feel and your thoughts than the news ever did, means that your standards are being lowered every day the more you buy into this. And you keep forgetting, like I said at the beginning of this podcast, you had a great reset. What do you think it meant? Great reset meant that everything about the past is done. It doesn't apply to what's happening now. And also, if you recall, I don't know how many of you saw this, but there is a montage of it's like a 2-minute video, and it's a montage. It's clips from different teachers that are talking about where their students are. So you've got 7th graders that don't know how to spell their name or speak in a complete sentence. You've got 7th graders that are basically at a 3rd or 4th grade level. You've got 2nd graders that are like preschool or kindergarten level. And the teachers are saying things like, why are these children being allowed to go to the next level? Why is a 2nd grader who can't even write their name, why are they even allowed to go into 3rd grade? Why is a 7th grader who doesn't even know who the president of the United States is, why are they allowed to go into 8th grade? So these teachers,
2nd to 8th grade.
No, 7th.
Oh,
I said
7th.
7th. They don't
Sorry.
even know who the president of the United States is.
Or
they
what
don't know
region they are,
or what region they
yeah.
live in. Like, these teachers are really concerned. And it's because we live in this sort of revolving door life. So there's a lot of people screaming and yelling and going on and on still to this day, 3 years later, about the biosecurity surveillance state, which there is a bit of that there. But what really is happening is the dumbing down of America. Some of the most astute, like brilliant minds of our time are going, poor Palestine or poor Israel or whatever, because they believe something they saw on social media. They forget that the thing called the Great Reset means that you have to step away from the past worldviews that you've adopted into your consciousness. Everything you've learned about the Palestinian and Israeli conflict does not apply today because of the Great Reset. It's all propaganda. It's all thought control, behavioral modification. It's all the dumbing down and the revolving door of society. Doctors will tell you, if I don't make a diagnosis for a perfectly healthy patient, then I will lose my funding. The insurance company will not pay me. And so a perfectly healthy individual walks in and says, I've been having some problems here and there, and the doctor has to give them a diagnosis of heart disease, or we should test you for cancer, or I should put you on these medications in order to kowtow and play fealty to the insurance companies. It's the same thing with educators, with schools, public schools, private schools. If they don't allow the revolving door life that we live in now, where these 7th graders that don't know how to spell a complete sentence or don't know what, region they live in the United States, don't know basic math skills or basic understanding, they have to go into the next level so that the institution can get funding from the government or from their stakeholders if it's a private school. So that's what's really going on, because that's what I see. Like that's what I physically see in the world. I was appalled living in a neighborhood of deep poverty for 5 years, watching grown-ups, like adults who apparently had even more education than I do, did not know how to spell or don't know how to speak correctly, or
Mm-hmm.
they don't know anything, just basic knowledge about stuff. It just blew my mind, and so I associated this with poverty, but it's really for everybody. This sort of revolving door. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter if they met the criteria. It doesn't matter if they can hold a thought in their head. The biggest issue that these teachers had with these children, which I found really fascinating, their biggest concern was the fact that they would read a story, like a 2 or 3 minute story, to the children. And we're talking anywhere from 8 years old up to 15 years old. A 3 minute story. And then they would close the book and they would say, okay, tell me what I just said. And the kids couldn't retain it.
Right.
And it's because of this. It's because of social media. It's because you're in this hyper state of dopamine hit after dopamine hit.
Mm-hmm.
And you are all in that same place. Everybody who has, their favorite podcasters and their favorite influencers, and those people who are railing on and on and on about, whatever worldview it is that you have, you're in that same state where you're just grabbing these little nuggets of basically drugs, and you're getting your dopamine hits, but you could not repeat back to me or anyone what's being said. That was the biggest concern for these teachers with these kids, is that, and then, so if the teachers, brought up concerns about how these children were failing in every possible way, the institution would say, go ahead and pass them anyway. Go ahead and let them slide through to the next grade anyway. And I think that is, so Brooke, I want to talk to you about children and trauma. So with all the trauma of 2020, did those 5 years go by slowly or just drag on?
Those were some of the most productive years of our work.
For me, for us,
Mm-hmm.
So we were in Pittsburgh from 2018 to 2023, and we basically put Book of Hours on the map during that time. We visited a coastal city 3 times in that during the COVID situation. Our marriage flourished. Like, there's so much that we did for ourselves. We took it back. We basically took it back because I don't know if any of you watched the video that we made in 2020. It was like in the fall of 2020. It was before the term "the Great Reset" had even been coined.
No, it was right after everything got locked down. We were at the park.
Right after, which
In the
wasn't that
spring.
around the fall?
No, it was in the spring.
Was the spring?
We did one later in the fall.
Yeah. All right. So we did one in the spring. It was called Hard Reset.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was that point that I told everybody, this is it. Everything from the past is dead to you now. You've been dropped. You've literally been dropped. So all of your past worldviews and the things that shaped you and the things that gave you your perspective on the world don't apply. Mm-hmm. It's all different now. So going back to, trauma and children, I think that, we just witnessed a really traumatic situation with a local family. So it's a mother and father, and then their 4 kids, age 14, age 11, age 7, and age 2. And on Christmas Eve, their house burned down. We found out where they were staying. We went over, we met them, we hugged them, and we gave them a donation to help them get back on their feet. And one of the things that really struck me was the 2-year-old. The 2-year-old had no idea that this terribly tragic thing that had ripped, the soul out of this poor mother who was just grieving and in so much pain and trauma, had zero clue what was going on. She was running around. She ran right up to me and threw herself at me and gave us a hug. Mm-hmm. She was chattering with her brothers and sisters. She was acting like a 2-year-old. It's like, she didn't have a clue that this terrible, tragic thing that has shaped their lives forever just happened, that they've been burned out of their house, that the house fire
lost everything.
They lost everything, So, Dr. Pilevsky, who's a pediatrician, says, we need to be more like toddlers.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to bring up
and he's
Pilevsky.
right.
I wanted to bring up Pilevsky because you mentioned the devices.
Uh-huh.
And I want to get back to something Brooke said, but I'll come back to that. But he mentioned the devices, and we did a video. You made a video featuring him, and I forget what it was called, but he was in it, and he went on this period, this point where he was like talking about how kids using devices, they check out and they do these things, and basically in their development, if they don't do certain things during their development, and the devices actually, the video games and the devices actually retard this development, if they skip a step, there's no going back. That cognitive connection,
that
neurological connection, and neurons are physical things. So neurological connections in your brain are physical. That's why when you learn to change your mind about something, it feels like such a huge shift, because it literally is. It is, you have built a new neuron. You have built a new bridge from one place to another, and you think a different way, literally. Okay. So in children's development, if they skip a spot, if they skip a step, there's no going back. They do not have that any longer. And they may be able to learn it later in life, but I'm not sure. And now you're looking for the video, and I wish I could remember what it was.
Was it Achilles? No, it wasn't Achilles.
But it was brilliant. And we interviewed Dr. Pilevsky at one point, and I don't agree with everything he says, but he is very kind and very
he's really kind, really genuine,
very genuine, gentle. He's a mensch. I mean, So he's a very good man. And I enjoyed our conversation with him. But I like him, hearing him talk about things. I feel like he's a little influenced by his cohorts on the 5 docs a little too much sometimes, but he does tend to step away from the other rhetoric that goes on there. But anyway, I just wanted to mention that, and we'll come up with the title. You can look it up. You can watch that video. So let me address Brooke. Biloxi hurricane risks are like the risks of earthquakes in parts of California? Question. There was a small earthquake in an epicenter, a 3.5. Okay, so I grew up in Orange County, so I kind of know what you mean. It happened. I happened to be around Christmas Eve, a beach city in the OC. So Huntington, Newport, one of those, Laguna. And then, so then I'll talk to that. So here's the interesting thing. People here are scared to death of earthquakes. And they live through Katrina. They keep, like people in California, the people in this area are expecting the big one, another big one to come eventually, come soon. I don't think either are ever going to happen. I grew up in California. I lived there for, 55 years, let's say, roundabout 55 years of my life in California. And most of that time was in San Francisco. 50 years, let's say that, 50 years. And people were always talking about, thank you for posting that. That's
I only posted it on one channel.
Okay, so it's on Facebook.
Can I post it here while you're talking?
Yeah, go ahead.
I need to...
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, sorry. So I was talking about the big one. I totally lost my train of thought.
It's because
That's okay. So the entire time that I lived in California, everybody kept talking about the big one that's going to come. The big one that's going to come. I lived through the San Francisco earthquake or the Loma Prieta in 1989. I lived through the LA earthquake in 1972, and these things were big events, but yet they're never considered the big one, right? So when is the big one going to come? I don't know. Honestly, I think that like Katrina, that there was a possibility that the 1989 earthquake was manipulated, that it was interference. I'm pretty damn sure that the earthquake that took place in oh hell, what's the name of that country? The small, poor French colony.
Puerto Rico?
No, that's
wait, no, that's
not. Haiti.
Haiti
Was
Haiti had an earthquake?
a big one.
Oh yeah,
You
that's
remember
right.
that? Yeah. So around the same time as Katrina, there were like all these like tragedies. There was the BP oil spill. There was the Haiti earthquake. There was Katrina. All these things, and I think that Haiti was a manipulation. I think 1989 Bay Area earthquake, Loma Prieta earthquake was,
and Katrina was definitely a manipulation.
And
Katrina was basically an
and we heard Mike Benn said something about how there was in the Cold War, in the height of the Cold War in the 60s and 70s, that a lot of the weird weather that was going on was basically a war between Russia and the United States, and it kind of came to a point where there was a snowstorm or a blizzard in Miami in like 1969 or something, and they finally started curtailing that. But honestly, I have a feeling, and Haiti was also like, it was basically a way to financialize the poor, right? This idea of disaster capitalism. Well, we make the disaster and we clean up on it, right? We make money from the poor, or they do. I don't. But the whole point that I'm trying to say is that I feel personally that the earthquake or the big hurricanes like Camille and Katrina were a result of some state manipulating weather. Doesn't matter whether it was the United States or another one, China, Russia, whatever, Cuba, manipulating the weather to cause that kind of disaster. Because I still need to look into this, because
I want the great die-off.
Right. I want to look into the historical record of like, were there those kinds of hurricanes going on before the turn of the 20th century, right? Before the 1920s, when weather actually started being manipulated. I want to know that. I want to figure that out. So if any of you, have any research out there, point me in the right direction, whatever, I'll look into it. But I really feel like, during the late 20th century, we're talking the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and into 2000s, the aughts, that this was manipulation. And furthermore, we feel that we're not going to see that anymore. We're not going to see that kind of
here in this region.
Yeah. We're not going to see that kind of devastation
with this region.
I think
now they have to concentrate on different kinds of devastation in some of the more lucrative regions, right, like San Francisco and New York and Chicago.
Which what we're seeing now with the fentanyl invasion,
right,
and what's going on. And so, we're talking about cognitive dissonance. We're talking about lies and propaganda. We know people in San Francisco that are glibly posting photos that are saying, yeah, go ahead, describe it.
Friends or former
friends,
sort of still friends, former friends, I don't know. They're saying, oh, what a hellhole. And then they show these beautiful photos and beautiful views that you get when when you're anywhere in San Francisco. But all I notice are the empty streets, like in the middle of the most heavily touristed areas. They're places that are normally heavily touristed. Places that people go to from all over the world are empty.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, okay, so you're showing a picture of a beautiful view, okay, but it's empty down below.
Your city has been like,
where's your disconnect?
Right.
And this is what I'm talking about. It's like everybody, not just them, when they 3 years ago, they proudly showed their "I got my COVID shot" sticker, online. I'm not just talking about those types of people. I'm also talking about, you
People in the
People-
right side of history,
people on the right side of history
the
who
truth
are
movement, or whatever you want to call
right,
it.
or people who are really anti-war that don't seem to understand that nothing is real. Nothing really is true anymore, because that's what the Great Reset is all about. We're also in the midst of the Great Die-Off. So, this is a 1,000-year war that was just waged on the global population. It doesn't matter how, doesn't matter who's doing it. I guess to some extent it matters, but a lot of people are dying. And so when you have, because I noticed it too. I noticed like I've seen it in my personal life, anecdotally. I keep running into situations where people are dying for whatever reason. There's just death all over the place now. It's everywhere. And I don't recall that being the case earlier on, like before, say, 2020. I just don't recall that. But now it's everywhere. So we're in the midst of a great die-off. It's not going to seem, the experts and the number crunchers will tell you, no, we're not. People aren't dying at a faster rate. We don't have a higher cause mortality now than we did, before. And they'll try to dismiss this, but you can't ignore what you see with your own two eyes. So that's how I live my life. I'm not going to go online to some, Palestinian website that sells pretty dishes or jewelry and buy stuff, because it takes very little effort to know that they're really running out of Chicago or New York or something. You know what I mean? And whatever, it feels weird, but I will give as much as I possibly can to people right outside my window, right outside my front door. So this co-optation of your very real and very endearing good intentions in order to help what you've been taught is something oppressed or something in a bad way, somebody who's not doing so well, but you have no real tangible proof of it. It's all based on historical context and worldview.
Right.
Whereas the people who were left homeless on Christmas Eve because their house burned down, the street was blocked off, 2 blocks from where we live. JP saw it with his own 2 eyes. You could see the smoke in the air. I mean,
we heard the fire trucks.
We heard the fire trucks. That's something really tangible. That's right here. And I would much prefer to do that than push a narrative that will influence my followers.
About some
people, far off place,
about people that you've never met. And let's address some of the comments here. So Brooke says, remember Clinton Foundation was involved in the Haiti so-called I mean, that's what I was referring to, kind of, is like they made bank on that. Hurricane Harvey was also suspicious, Robert says. Yeah, I agree. And then
is it approximately 70 to 80% that took the 2021 potion? Is that a factor? I don't know.
No,
I don't know. Yeah, it could be.
Yeah.
I mean, she's referring to what I'm calling the Great Die-Off. So with the Great Die-Off, with the 70 to 80% of the population that took the 2021 potion, would that factor into the Great Die-Off? I'm going to say I don't know, because I think 70 to 80% is a lot. Did 70 to 80% of people take the shot? Wow, that's a lot of people.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, because
they
don't release the statistics.
All that data is so manipulated and wrong.
We've heard about a lot of people and know a lot of people. We know a lot of people that got sick. There was one of our neighbors in Pittsburgh, across the street. Basically, suddenly she had hip problems and blood clots. And and she had to go in for a hip replacement, and she has to go in for another one this next year, this month, so both hips to be replaced. And she's like maybe 65. And that's just ridiculous, because she wasn't the kind of person that was putting that kind of, she's not like heavily overweight. She's not like the kind of person that put that much pressure or work on her, her hips. This is a result of the shots. This is a result of, something that's been put into her body that hurt her. But then we've also heard about people who are just like nothing happened.
Right.
Right. And this is the whole thing with this. It allows for, this is the propaganda and lies that we were talking about. We put out, and this is why we keep saying that, this is being manipulated, because they can manipulate it. It's through supply chain. It's through being able to track where specific things go to specific areas. And then you can even like randomize it in that respect.
Mm-hmm.
So you can send, a randomized set of poisons to a specific area, zip code, whatever you want to call it, because they know down to the store where they send things, because they can track that stuff. They have to be able to, right? And so this has been developed over decades. They know how to do that. Same thing goes with, marketing and other data they collect from you. They also know what's going out. And so random numbers of people will get sick and random numbers of people will not get sick.
Right. So we have friends who, like a couple of friends of ours, they did not do anything. They barely even wore a mask, let alone, get a shot or whatever. But their entire family did get, the series of shots, sometimes a flu shot and a COVID shot, or a shingle shot and a COVID shot or whatever, if they were older. And so they have all sorts of, shots, and yet nobody's sick.
Right.
And, if they're childbearing age, they still got pregnant and they were able to have babies, So,
but at the same time,
it's hard to know,
right? Because originally we were saying that it was an attack on the poor, but
but now
we've seen since then that people who are in the bourgeoisie, literally the bourgeoisie, or at least the up and coming, people just one step below, are also being affected.
We should talk about
Ruby.
Yeah,
that's what I was referring to.
Okay. So this is where my theory about this being an attack on the poor
has broken down.
Because it flew in the face of this situation. This circumstance flew in the face of that theory. So, which means that I'm able to change my mind about things. And one of the things that we started out with when this particular platform or this particular channel became so popular, we always began with, and we reserve the right to change our mind. If I don't believe that it's the biosurveillance security state anymore, that I did 2 years ago, I told you I reserve the right to change my mind, because experiential knowledge and what I'm seeing with my own two eyes is in contradiction to the biosurveillance security state. Okay. I'm not seeing evidence of it. Okay. So this particular story about this particular individual flew in the face of, hey, this COVID shot, it's an attack on the poor. You had a senior vice president of a wealth management company, a young black woman, married.
So you have your DEIs going here.
Married to a social justice white woman. Obviously, they're lesbians. They're married legally. She got pregnant through the medical industry. So she either did like sperm donor or artificial insemination. So the African American, partially black, wealthy senior vice president of a wealth management company, married to a social justice warrior who works heavily in the nonprofit sector, also living in California in the Bay Area, related to people who are in some way of the class of people that I had always assumed would would not have to worry about what I was seeing
Exempt.
and would be exempt from what the poor were experiencing.
Right.
They just had the most devastating experience happen to them. So she, the senior vice president of the wealth management company, the biological mother, found her 2-year-old, almost 3-year-old daughter in distress, something that could not be explained, like failure. The body was failing quickly. So they rushed her to UCLA, rushed her to the hospital. And the doctors diagnosed her within minutes. Cha-ching! Because if you go into the emergency room, you better be given a diagnosis. You can't just be given an aspirin and sent back home. You better be given a serious, intense diagnosis, especially if it looks like there is a 0% chance of survival, right? Which there was with this child.
Cover your ass.
So they
Box
immediately, within minutes, diagnosed her with a rare genetic disease. This rare genetic disease, you know what it does is it causes organ failure within minutes. Meanwhile, a month prior, 2 months prior, this child was vibrant and dancing and just beaming, the most big for her age.
And just the most alive child I've ever seen.
Not somebody who was suffering from a rare genetic disease that causes organ failure overnight. You know what causes organ failure overnight? Poisoning. Mm-hmm. If you drink a poison, or if you're around groups of adults who typically inject themselves with poisons, because we know that these things are transmissible. They're transmitting. Okay, so this child had no chance, in my opinion. So this is the diagnosis that these poor parents and the extended family, the uncle, the grandfather, who's a good friend of JP's, the mother, the grandmother, all of these extended family members have now splintered and fallen apart because of the untimely, quick death of this child that was caused by the medical industry, diagnosed by the medical industry. The medical industry made huge money because they wrote down in their little report that this near 3-year-old child died of a rare genetic disorder. In fact, it was so appalling to me to watch this whole thing go down, especially as the parents were apologizing for and thanking the doctors who were, going through the process of trying to keep the child alive in the few hours that she was failing. So she was failing in the emergency room. They went through all the proper steps and then she died outright, right? So they were like, oh, they did their very best. And oh, we thank them and they're wonderful. And this team of experts, and they made this, really amazing diagnosis. And it's like this is Stockholm syndrome, right? This is where you are thanking your oppressor, you're thanking your murderer, you're thanking the institution now that has caused you so much pain. So this is the domino effect that I'm talking about, and why it blew up in my face that this isn't just about the poor, right? This woman is now grieving. She's probably on an extended hiatus from her very well-paying job as a senior vice president. She may even lose her job. Her marriage may fail. She may lose the super close relationship she had with her half-brother and her father and her mother. Mm-hmm. The whole family is falling apart. And this was a very, very, very unique blended family that I always was truly fascinated with. Mm-hmm. And it stood in the face of the biological connections that were
across the boundaries of biological
connection, because the grandfather isn't biologically related to any of these people.
Right.
Okay.
He's legally related through adoption and that kind of thing. But I think beyond the legal thing, emotionally and spiritually, he is connected to them.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
So
and I knew the mother.
Right.
The mother.
You've
I knew
known
the
them
mother.
For 30 years.
I mean, I met the mother when she was, 6 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've known these people for a long time.
Yeah.
And This is just a tragedy.
So it does not just affect the poor. This idea that it only went after, maybe the conservative side or the people who were standing it up for, freedom or whatever. No,
these are hardcore.
These
are the people who held up the whole thing. They lifted up the whole idea of locking down, of getting this shot, that COVID was real, that everything was like you had to do what you were being told.
Mm-hmm.
These are the people that went along with the narrative, that believed all the lies, and that went along with everything, and they are also being affected now.
So I was so appalled by this story. I was absolutely just appalled from beginning to end by it, and also having my own epiphany about how it wasn't just an attack on the poor. That I reached out to Naomi Wolf and I sent her an email, and I got a very good response from her and her Amy Kelly, the woman who's sort of
project manager.
She's the project manager for the Pfizer reports. And they emailed me personally, and they gave me all of this information that anybody can find on the Pfizer, through the Pfizer reports, or even through the CDC or the NIH. They gave me all of these reports that talk about how this alleged rare genetic disorder that causes organ failure overnight was attributed to the shot. They gave me all of that information, and I'm thinking to myself, I wonder if I could give it to the family, but I'm not, because
you end up looking like an asshole.
I'm not. You can't. And so that's another issue with this whole thing is right. I have another friend who's texting me every single day. My brother or my brother-in-law is a giant Trump supporter. How do I reach him? Give me the documents. Give me the video. Show me.
Trump supporter?
No, TDS.
Biden or TDS. They have TDS.
They have TDS. I'm sorry, not Trump supporter. They have TDS, Trump derangement syndrome. They think that he belongs in prison and shackled and that he's the next Hitler and la da 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 da. Give me the facts. Give me the video. Give me the links that prove him wrong. And I'm like, you can't reach these people. You couldn't reach them about the biological warfare through COVID and the COVID shots. You couldn't reach them about that. What makes you think you're going to be able to reach them about anything? So you just have to so I have all this wonderful information. I have the links from the Daily Clout, people who've done all this hard work, but there's nothing I can do with them.
Right. So one of the things I noticed, and this kind of ties into what you're talking about, is one of the points that we were going to talk about was anxiety. We just saw an article on USA Today about anxiety and how it's everywhere. And we put this down. So what's your take on that whole thing? Because some people were somebody was questioning you set it up. I don't, you want to set it up, or do you want me to?
Well, okay, anxiety in general puts you in a fight or flight place.
Okay,
right?
yeah. Let me back up.
I don't.
So I think the positioning of this is that this article was saying anxiety is part of life.
Oh,
okay? Right. It's part
the
of
anxiety industrial complex.
Right. Well, the thing is it's hardwired into us because it tells us when we're in danger, mm-hmm. or it tells us when we're in a bad situation. And something that and I'm going to change course for a second here. Dr. Martin, David Martin talks about how, there are receptors in the brain that are for something, and that I believe personally, and I've said this before, that magic was more a part of our lives long ago, probably before civilization. And we have evolved out of it. Unfortunately, I think civilization has pushed us away from it, but that we were able to not only use intuition, but we were able to probably manipulate the world in ways that what we would call now magic, or if not manipulate, we would be able to understand things in a much broader sense and communicate maybe even without speaking.
that actually happened in real life on Christmas Eve with us. Can I just interject?
Yeah, sure.
So when we made the donation to the family that lived down the street from us, who lost their house in a house fire on Christmas Eve, we set the intention.
Right.
We didn't make the donation to just help them. We put energy into that donation so that other people would be inspired to do what they could, because I don't think there was a lot of kind of holding back. People weren't sure where to donate. People weren't sure where to go and what to do. So you set the intention. So it was about helping the family, sure, but what we gave them was not going to be enough to really truly
Do enough. Yeah.
do enough for them. It had to be that the whole community came together. And it was either this morning or yesterday that the person who's sort of central command for this situation, for this family, has said, okay, that's it. Too many people have donated. Stop. So there is magic in the world. You have to set your intentions.
Mm-hmm.
You have to and so that's what we did. We were the first people, I think, to make any kind of real movement towards breaking through that uncomfortable space,
right.
Or like, oh, what should we do? I don't want to just hand, this check over.
Or I don't want to give them a bunch of old clothes.
I don't want to give them a bunch of old clothes that they don't need. I want to set pure intentions. And I don't want to just hand the check over to somebody else who will give it to them. It needed to be us giving it to them to put that energy out there. Yeah. You had to do that. And so the talk about magic is real. And the same thing happened when we left Pittsburgh and moved to the Gulf Coast. We set the intentions. If you were to look on paper, you would be like, how the fuck did you make this happen? Like, you guys are not in a financial place to make this happen.
And yet it happened.
And we're not we're not $500,000 in debt. How's that? We're not, we're doing okay. Like, we're not great, but we're doing okay.
Yeah.
That was the whole intention, is I want a better life. I deserve a better life. I deserve a better house. I deserve these beautiful live oak trees on this property. I deserve the 20-minute walk to the beach. I deserve this. And I also deserve to have it without having to,
sell my soul
or be, enslaved to debt forever, and it happened.
Right.
You have to set your intentions.
Right. So that figures into the whole, this passive thing. So magic does exist. It's just, it's been, told to us that it's either bad or that it doesn't exist, and you're thinking silly thoughts if you think that magic is real. But just like those things were part and parcel of who we are, anxiety is also part of who we are. It helps us in understanding the world. Okay, whether we're in danger or if something's not right, that intuition, that anxiety kind of kicks in. But in this world of the this industrial world, post-industrial world that we've been living in for the last 150, 160 years or more, 200 years of industry, of us being slaves to the overlords, as it were. We live in a world where things are faster, things are harder, and our anxiety is always kicked up. And this article was saying basically that, anxiety is part of life. It's part of who we are. And we need to learn how to manage it as opposed to trying to avoid it. You can't avoid it. And if you do, you hurt yourself more. That's basically what this article is saying. But some people were saying, but that's bullshit. We shouldn't have to, anxiety isn't something you should have to live with. And you should, and basically getting into the idea of, and this is me reading into what this person said, is that it's basically toxic positivity. Everything has to be positive all the time. And I felt like that attitude was toxic positivity. Right. And that, you need to ignore these things. But I believe, just like stress and other things, you need to manage this within your world, within your life. And I think, even like if you even look like at something like a system like, like Buddhist teaching, Buddhism, and like Zen meditation, that is about managing stress. That is about managing anxiety. That is about paying attention and being in the world, and paying attention to not just yourself and your own breathing, but also the other people and the suffering throughout the world. Okay, so it comes back to being able to understand where you are in the world, what's going on around you, and how it affects other people and where they are, and having that oh hell, what's the word? Oh God, they always talk about it. Anyway, having that understanding
Discernment
for other people. No,
empathy.
Not empathy, but that other thing.
For other people,
loving kindness.
yeah.
Yeah,
of course. Well, loving kindness,
compassion. That's the word I'm looking for. Right, having compassion for the world, having compassion for other people. And that's not just through, it's not just like compassion isn't just giving somebody, a check or whatever. It's about having intentions, like you said, setting intentions, but also like the compassion can be set through thinking about somebody and what people call prayer,
right.
And these kinds of things. These things do exist. These things do work.
Right. The problem is in this high tech world, it's being co-opted. So
Right.
Social media is co-opting your intentions. It's co-opting that power, and this situation with this family on Christmas Eve where they lost everything, this wasn't done through GoFundMe. There was,
the help to them.
People saw it,
Right.
People saw this family of 6 standing in front of their home, which was burning down in front of them. And one woman started the intention, whether she knew it or not. She said, because I belong to the community page where all this, people were like, what happened? There was a big fire. Like, is everyone okay? Like, what happened? And this woman said, everyone's alive. Everyone got out. And I gave them a little bit of cash, probably like $20, all she had in her pocket. So she set the intention and she gave enough information that it started, but it wasn't enough.
Right. Now, I want to say that social media was used as a tool to help spread the word,
but not GoFundMe.
Right. And it wasn't used as a way of like just covering over the situation.
Right.
Going, next issue.
Or generating all of your pain and stress and thoughts about the situation and then dumping it onto a social media page.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Instead, it was like, who's doing this? Who's doing what? And when I finally said, I met them and here's what they are, show patience and kindness to them because they're in trauma, suddenly the whole world like just woke up.
Yeah.
The whole community woke up.
I have to credit our neighbor who also lives in this area, and and he saw the situation. I don't know how he made connection with them, but he did, and he had the opportunity and the means to significantly help them.
Yes,
in a way that
nobody else could.
Nobody else could. He was the operations manager of a local. He is the local
it's actually a really cool. Yeah.
Of a local hotel.
It's really cool.
And it's one of the nice, like Julie and I had been admiring the building itself. We walked by it a few times on the it's right on the beach.
Right on the boardwalk.
On the boardwalk on the beach. It's a great place. And he had the opportunity to allow this family to stay there for a number of nights. Mm-hmm. And they can't stay there tonight because there's bookings for New Year's Eve.
Happy New Year, Matt.
Happy New Year.
Thank you.
And Matt, thank you for I saw the comment about Bernie Sanders is in big pharma and that may have been why the Vermonters relief. Right. Yeah, so they're still healthy up there. Mm-hmm. Most likely, but I'm sure it's still random. But anyway, so he had that opportunity, but he also made it known, and that's how we discovered how to contact the family.
Right.
And so through him, we were able to make that connection, and then through us, we were able to then pass that along.
Right.
And that's how it starts. And because we did want to reach out to them, but we didn't know how to reach them.
Mhm.
And on top of it all, the family has a language barrier. They're Hispanic.
I forgot about that part.
And only the one daughter speaks English. And so she has to translate for the family.
All the time.
The time. And I can only imagine the stress she's through.
Yeah, the 14-year-old is going through more than she should.
But this, so these things happen all the time, and they happen in your community. And so what we are suggesting is pay attention to what's going on around you and do what you can to help move things forward within your community.
Just set a simple, small intention.
It doesn't,
leave social media for just, nothing real.
And here's something else that I want to really point out too, is the grand gesture is not what is needed in any of these circumstances. The grand gesture is basically another false narrative. It's something that you're doing for yourself as opposed to doing for other people. So keep in mind that when you're doing things, that you set your intentions so that you're not doing it for yourself. You're trying to help other people, and you keep that compassion in mind, as opposed to saying, I did my part. And that's not why we're bringing up this story at all. What we did was a drop in the bucket. But what we also did, though, is that we helped pass that along and get that energy flowing.
Right. It's the energy behind it. Right.
And, and we like to throw out these phrases, direct action and mutual aid, but compassion and right action has to be part of those things as well.
So that would actually be a really good transition. We're at the 90-minute mark, and I we didn't want to take up too much of everyone's time because it is, New Year's Eve.
We also haven't been on the air since May.
Right.
We have not done a bookmark since May.
Wow. Yeah. So, but still,
Yeah.
I think that so we just came out of Year of the Rabbit.
Or we're coming, we're
just coming out of it.
Yeah, well, February is going to transition out of Year of the Rabbit.
In February, it'll be the end of the Year of the Rabbit. So starting in February, it'll be Year of the Dragon, the Wood Dragon. And so we were like, okay, well, the Year of the Rabbit was pretty awesome for us.
We were told by the soothsayers and the people who write these horoscopes or who pay attention to these things that it would not have been a good year for us to do what we did, but we did it anyway.
And we're great for it. So I think
and I am a water rabbit, and this is the year of the water rabbit. So yeah. So anyway, go on.
So I think for Year of the Dragon, and I'm already starting to see sort of little evidence of this throughout, some people I've talked to, is I think that a lot of people, and I know we're going to do this, are going to go in. They're going to work on maybe fix up their home a little bit, maybe do some remodeling. I know there's a couple of people that,
are going through this right
that
now.
Are going through. One woman that, I saw on social media, she's remodeling her kitchen, and another person that I sent a Christmas card to reached out to me and said, I got your Christmas card, and by the way, I'm also remodeling my kitchen. And, so I think that in February, when it starts Year of the Dragon, that it's going to be about sort of, just hunkering down, like a super close friend flying in from Chicago to come spend a few days with us, and we're going to go to New Orleans. And I think it's just about that intimacy with yourself and with your friends and the people you trust and your homestead, working on your house, working on your own projects. I really feel that that's what Year of the Dragon is going to be about. And believe me, the state, the propaganda agents, and all of these, troublemakers out there are going to do everything they can to keep you from doing that, to keep you from looking within, to keep you from
Mhm.
being still and silent
Right.
in that place of self-edification. They're going to want to not have you do that, but to be out there and
Right.
chaotic
Because
and
the dragon is
crazy.
about
Because the
flashiness
dragon is
and
about flashiness and crazy expression. And so just be prepared. And I have a feeling that a lot of people that we follow are probably going to get caught up in that. But there are a few out there that are going to see that for what it is and go in even more, work on their own projects and their own goals. Please set yourself a goal. I mean, we have a 5-year goal. We reset this year. So I had a 5-year goal when I moved to Pittsburgh, and I was by myself in this great house. It was 100 years old, almost 100 years old, but I didn't really like the neighborhood, and I knew that I deserved something better, and I knew that I wanted to be by a beach, and I knew that I didn't want snow anymore, and I knew that I didn't want to live, up 2 flights of stairs, and I just had all this criteria. And I gave myself 5 years and I got it. So now my 5-year plan is something else. So we're, have a 5-year plan, have a goal, have something to reach for, and work on attaining that through creative energy, through self-edification, through definitely not being distracted by the flashiness and the danger because danger is very seductive, isn't it? It's very intoxicating. And a dragon is super seductive, right? Everything about the dragon is like really amazing to look at, like especially if you're like in a parade and you see dragons,
the
dragon dancers and stuff. I mean, that's what it's all about, right? So don't be distracted by that. And that also has to do with even people on social media that you might be following, or that you might consider them a hero of the truth movement or something like that. They might become that dragon, so be careful of that as well. So in the description of this, or in one of the descriptions of this podcast, I had said, we will have some discussions and maybe predictions about 2024. So that's what I think. I think people are going to look within. I think people are going to work harder on I just keep hearing the word intimacy. There are people that are tired of being alone. They're tired of being single. They're just tired of it. And they're going to be selective with their partners. They're going to be looking to maybe start a family. And all of this takes that, nesting attitude that you have to have. You have to create a beautiful, safe, healthy environment if you want to bring that into your life. Like if you're thinking about bringing a child or a partner or a new relationship, or even like a creative endeavor. Think of a creative endeavor as, planning the birth of a child. Creativity needs to be nurtured and cared for. It needs a beautiful space, a healthy space, lots of air, lots of good light. Change your house if you need to. I really feel that 2024 is going to be more about that. And I suspect that on social media, we'll be seeing more pictures of people's, hey, look, I'm upgrading my kitchen, or I'm, I decided to feng shui my bedroom or something like that. I think we'll be seeing more pictures of that and more conversations around that, and hopefully less conversations about propaganda, which may or may not be real.
Matt Galloway gave a shout out to our video, the new Constitution, Living War Crimes.
So that was released a year ago, almost exactly 1 year ago. I think I released it on January 1st, 2023. And I don't really have anything like that in the hopper. There's something else going on here.
Right. Yeah.
And
I have a script in the hopper, and I talked about it back in May. It was
Mm-hmm.
supposed to come out in August, but clearly I had other things on my mind, other things to do. So I wrote a script about AI and how it's affecting us, and it might be the conclusion to our new model series. It might not. I don't know.
Who knows?
Who knows? Who
Well,
knows?
that's just it. Things change on a dime.
Mhm.
Things change all the time.
But I still plan on producing it. You know?
Right. Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think you should.
Mhm.
I think it would be really good. And I think that, people need to reserve the right to change their mind, be okay with other people who are changing their mind
Mhm.
about things,
Yeah. AI is all good. It's okay. Don't worry about it. It's the best thing that ever happened to me. I'm joking completely, but it's not. It's also not the worst thing that people seem to think. It's not the New York Times saying, that AI could destroy the world because somebody might
or the
tell
economy or whatever.
they might tell ChatGPT to
blow up the world.
something to blow up Japan, and it will. Come on.
Yeah. I know. People are weird.
Yeah.
But I would say that for 2024, do all those things that I talked about. Everybody's got something to offer,
Yeah.
So
Yeah. There was one last subject that I kind of wanted to talk about, but it's kind of like it's late and it's not really that important. So we can wrap it up if you'd like.
You want?
Interview?
We totally should end on that.
Okay, let's end on this. Okay, so I don't know if anyone's heard the.
This is funny. This is really funny.
Yeah, let's end on
that. It could be
that.
telling. It could definitely be a tell for the future.
So Tucker Carlson recently interviewed Frank Underwood,
otherwise known as Kevin Spacey.
Kevin Spacey. I mean Frank Underwood.
Kevin Spacey. Frank Underwood.
So it was a weird interview.
It was super meta. It was great.
Totally meta because on one hand, Kevin Spacey was Frank Underwood.
Mm-hmm.
F you. And on the other hand, he was talking as Kevin Spacey because they were talking about
real things that happened to Kevin Spacey,
but in the character of Frank Underwood. So if you don't know what we're talking about, Frank Underwood is a character from the series House of Cards, which was on Netflix for like 5 seasons. And during the Me Too movement, Kevin Spacey got completely
Me Too'd.
And the character, Frank Underwood, was shot, but we never really knew if he was killed or not. They never really said. And not only was Kevin Spacey Me Too'd, he was fucked over hardcore. And then some court cases came out saying that, he had sexually assaulted or hurt several men that came forward, and it turned out none of them really had a case. True. None of it was true. It was all bullshit and lies. Yeah. And basically, he
was totally vindicated. In other words,
yeah. But they set it up so that he had to spend money on a court case and on court cases and lawyers and all this shit. So they basically were fucking him around,
financially draining him.
Exactly. So at one point, Tucker Carlson asked Frank Underwood a question, and Frank Underwood, do you watch much Netflix? And Kevin Spacey, Frank Underwood said, well, I'm sure that you watch as much Fox News as I watch Netflix. And so at that point,
you have to
wait a minute again. The fourth wall, which is basically the wall between the stage and the audience, has been broken many times throughout this interview. But especially there was like this poignant moment where, not poignant, but a very specific moment where, okay, Frank Underwood is also Kevin Spacey, but now who is Tucker Carlson? I almost said Carl Tuckerson. Who is Tucker Carlson? Is he a character?
Yeah,
is he a newsman who's a character who's also Tucker Carlson? Right?
I think his name really is Tucker Carlson, right?
Sure, of course. But I think that the man that we saw on Fox News and the man we're seeing on X,
on his own
that was also a joke.
His own platform, yeah. X.
Oh, I've never been on X before. I always wondered what Tucker Carlson would be like on X. And he's like, well, I've never taken that, and so then there were like sexual innuendos. But yeah, so Tucker Carlson, the man, Tucker Carlson, the character, you decide, right? So it again comes back to what we were talking about, not maybe lowering of standards, but propaganda and lies, and like the shifting of like how climate change can be anything you want it to be. Tucker Carlson can be anyone you want him to be or anyone he wants to be. He's the newsman. He's the man. He's the character. He's the actual person. Frank Underwood is Kevin Spacey. Kevin Spacey is Frank Underwood in that context, right? So you have this context, this little bubble where these things can kind of be both, this meta thing that's going on. It can be, and we've been seeing these movies and these what we would call creative texts talking about the metaverse, where you have, like the Spider-Man metaverse, right? Where you've got different entities of Spider-Man in all places at the same time.
Right.
Right. So we're definitely living in this like really weird, hyper normal world.
That was your pivot into this like really, really being like thrown into hyper normalization. And that's a term from Adam Curtis, who used to be a BBC
documentary producer.
Yeah, and he went on to he's a documentarian, and he went on to do his own stuff. But
he's a big influence on us.
You should really like study the world through the lens of hyper normalization.
Where two narratives that are two opposing narratives are coming at you at the same time from the same source.
Interchangeable roles.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that Tucker Carlson was speaking to Frank Underwood about real situations that took place with Kevin Spacey. I mean, it's a real mind fuck.
It is.
That's what it's meant to be. And so that was your pivot. That's your pivot into this hyper normalized world. So this is why I really think that 2024 is going to be nothing but a giant dragon show. I mean, and who's the dragon in the political theater? Who's the dragon?
You decide.
Well, I think it's Trump.
Yeah.
I think Trump is the dragon. You're going to hear a lot
I think
him.
there's also going to be a Biden dragon.
Yeah.
Because
probably.
Because they've done everything they can to divert our attention from the fact that Biden has been indicted or taken to court for the things that he's guilty of.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody hears anything about that. I barely know what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
So maybe the political theater is the dragon itself.
Since you brought up the T word, I have to say, I honestly feel, and sorry to you Trump supporters out there, but I honestly feel that Trump is in on a lot of the bullshit.
At this point, yes. Maybe not at one point, but now, yes.
I think that he's been used, but I think he's also been part of it. And he's certainly, if not part of it, he is the useful idiot. So at the very least, the useful idiot. At the very most, he is part and parcel of this whole, puppet show theater.
Yeah, that's true.
So
yeah, for sure. So we'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens. Okay, I just insulted about 3/4 of our audience. No, I'm kidding.
No,
I don't know. I'm sure you guys are smarter than that.
People are fine with that.
Yeah.
I think in general.
Great. Well,
Happy New Year, everybody.
Yeah, Happy New Year. I don't know what you guys are doing tonight. We're drinking, but not getting drunk. We're not going out. We're staying home. We're having a good time.
We're still, unboxing.
I know. I put a couple pictures up today. We had to have some emergency plumbing done today.
Yeah. So
we're installing things. We're setting up stuff. There's still things in boxes. My office is just nothing but boxes. It smells like boxes in there. It's
boxes, cardboard. It's time to get rid of it. Yep. So we've been here a month now, officially. So it's been really great being able to just, set the house up. But Happy New Year to everybody. And just,
go and have
fun.
Have a meaningful time.
Yeah. Have fun.
Yeah.
All
right.
Life's too short.
Life is too short. And so enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
And, do what you need to make yourself feel good. But, don't abuse other people in the process.
Exactly. Have a great one, guys. Thanks for tuning in today.
Thank you.
It means a lot to us.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Hopefully we'll make this more of a regular thing than every 6 months.
We'll try.
Okay. All right. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Bye-bye.
Bye.
bookmark is made possible by our patrons and supporters. You can help us continue our work by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Book of Hours. Join Rockfin or leave us a tip at rockfin.com/Book of Hours, or leave us a one-time donation at paypal.me/Book of Hours. Or you can use Cash App. Thank you.